Sweden shifts away from no-lockdown strategy amid growing case numbers.
Here's a summary of the article.
Sweden will shift away from its early coronavirus strategy of opting against lockdown measures and instead embrace restrictive measures adopted by most of its neighbors amid growing case numbers in the country. Urs Tegnell, Sweden's state epidemiologist, is set to meet with local health officials next week to discuss which measures to put into place in response to outbreaks in the capital Stockholm and nearby city Uppsala, the Telegraph newspaper reported. Unlike its Nordic neighbors and most other countries, Sweden did not deploy wholesale lockdown measures in response to the first wave of the coronavirus pandemic earlier this year. Sweden has recorded a much higher death per population rate than any of its neighbors since adopting this strategy. Umeå University's Drive Joachim Rocklov told the Telegraph newspaper that after being an outlier earlier in the year, Sweden was shifting to a strategy closer to those adopted by most other governments. Johan Nojd, who heads Uppsala's infectious diseases department, suggested that he would be prepared to introduce harsher restrictions for the city, like new rules for hospitality if the number of cases in the city continued to grow. Bitter Brastad, the chief legal officer at Sweden's public health agency, said the rules were something in between regulations and recommendations.
This post received a score of 14,000, with an upvote ratio of 77%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
I'm confused, Sweden hasn't started a lockdown, and the strategy really hasn't changed. It doesn't sound like it will change drastically either.
This is the claim from the article anyway, maybe another example of somewhat misleading headlines on Reddit. This site is full of poorly written articles.
And further down, seems pretty clear to me to still be a no-lockdown approach based on primarily voluntary compliance.
Because in Sweden there's no ability to simply force people to do X or Y. A strong recommendation is as close as it gets.
It should be noted, especially to fellow Swedes, that strong recommendation on this case is specific verbiage that essentially means we would fucking force you if we could, not we suggest you maybe consider avoiding it. That said, I and many others have been hoping for an increased TP. The attendance limit at games would be a shame to see further restrictions instead.
Can't you just watch it on TV? I live here. There is no change from before. I would fag this article sensational. Possibly there are some changes on how we could do things on regional level. But as of yet, no changes in reality.
Yeah, things are still pretty normal here.
As a Swede I can confirm this confirmation.
Same, nothing has changed in Umeå either.
As someone living in Sweden, I had to hit our Department of Health to see if there were anything new published to match what this headline states, but I find nothing. Here, it is available in English so you can verify. Lots of media seems to be severely lacking in foreign correspondence to give correct representation of the situation in other countries. It is either that, or that lots of media is heavily politically redacted to present a version of reality that sells their political ideas.
Welcome to the world news. Where everyone's an asshole and has their own agenda and will paint their own truth even if it doesn't match the real truth. Very true. The person you responded to is using a 5-month-old link that states,
"The text you quoted doesn't appear on the page you are referring to." What now? The article doesn't even say that lol. The headline and the article doesn't fit together. Imagine reading a headline, Texas to ban all guns, and the article is about how officials can recommend to people that they don't have to buy guns.
People from YouTube apparently call it clickbait.
greater than it will give local authorities the power to strongly recommend people to avoid busy public places like shopping centers, museums, gyms, concerts, and sports matches. There will be no fines or legal consequences for people who decide not to follow any new advice. This doesn't sound like a lockdown though, or a shift away from a no-lockdown strategy.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to Speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.